What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. This is Oli JT Bron. I'm an Italian professional poker player and I play mid to high stakes cash game online all the way up to 1k NL. Today I'm joined by Francesco, a poker coach and player with years of experience at the tables, and he will review and rate some of my hands played between 500 NL and 1k NL. He can give my hands a rating of either being a mistake, a close hand, or a GTO well played hand. So without further ado, let's dive right into the analysis. Okay, let's start with the first hand. We have a heads up 3-bet pot against a regular, and this guy mostly plays a 6-max, so he's not a heads upper. With 3-bet pocket queens, and he continues. The board is 7 for deuce two-tone. Here I was going pot or check when there are two low cards and there is the two-tone. It's a board where I want mostly bet over pairs, and I was going something along the lines of 80-20, 90-10 with this overpair region. I think the stronger will lean towards checking a little more. For example, pocket aces, I would check more than pocket nines or pocket tens. And this time we roll a check, and opponent checks back. Turn is a king, and now with these specific suits, I thought this hand is mostly a check, but I would go with a polar sizing, pot or check, and mostly bet my king x region, some good king x. And this time we check, and opponent goes for the b70. Already some things to take into consideration, because he could have gone something like pot or 125, but of course I'm not going anywhere with pocket queens, and we continue. River is d8 and the guy goes all in. A 6 spot. For a 6-max player, it's hard to find some low or no equity bluffs on the turn. And for that specific reason, even though I know it sounds a little crazy, I thought that this hand, just in terms of pot odds, I need to be right around, as you can see over here, hand to note gives the pot odds. We need to be right 38.63% of the time, and I just think it's not the case for this pot, and I make the hero fold. So let me know your thoughts on this one.
So this one is an interesting hand because, as you said, on the turn, villain can choose a bigger bet size, although it's also possible to bet around 40% of the pot in his shoes. So I think his sizing, it's kind of awkward in the sense that it leaves an awkward SPR to shove the river because he needs to use the overbet. But at the same time, it's more polarized than 40% pot, which is targeting automatic hands that will auto-fold there. So this sort of in-between size, I think it's probably the worst option that he can take. But your hand, I think, once you check the flop, then it becomes a pure check on the turn, especially with these suits, because you're blocking flush draws that are gonna call a polarized bet. And this is, yeah, pure check call on the turn. On the river, there is interesting considerations to make, because some of the natural bluffs that they might have, like queen 6 suited, jack 6 suited, queen 5, etc., those hands might already start stabbing on the flop. So villain can have a bit more of this natural looking bluffing hands in this line, and also maybe check back a little bit with the jack 10, 10, 9 on this turn as well. And also another problem is that villain might bet too thin with this line, because in general, when you play for stack here, you're not supposed to be very capped. Like if you bet polar especially, you're not blindly betting king 9 plus here, but your betting range is mostly built around king queen plus and king jack. I would say king jack also qualifies for this line, but villain might even take king 10 plus and take this line. So solver likes to call this hand pure in 6 max, and also heads up, it's a reasonable bluff catcher. But the problem is that heads up, considering how most people play, the risk is that they lean towards going for team value more than
when you talk about heads up, you mean like big blind button?
Yeah, 6 max big blind button and heads up, just like we're playing.
Sure.
We're playing right now. So people tend to be a bit thinner here on this line, I feel. So it's probably better to have a king rather than queens. I believe that for solver against a very polarized line, essentially the range of villain is gonna be king queen plus for sure, king jack as well. So having queens as a strong removal on his best value, and it doesn't block bluffs, especially with your suits. But I think in practical terms, folding here is fine. So I think this is a good exploit, like not solver approved, but very good exploit, all things considered.
Okay, thank you. So the rating, final rating?
Approved.
Okay, let's go to the next one. We have a 6 max spot now. Here we're playing 6 max, and we go for the cutoff open 2.3 big blinds. We face a big 8 big blinds 3-bet from a regular, and we decide to continue with pocket fours. This was a mixed strategy for me. Don't want to call all the time, don't want to fold all the time. This time we went for the call. With this queen 9 deuce to tone, and I went for the small check raise. I think he's betting his all range here, and I don't know if I have to go something like check raise 50%, something like 18 big blinds. This time I went for the small raise, since I think his betting range and hands like ace king are already in a tough spot against the small sizing. So I decided to go for the small size, and this hand with both suits, I think it's fine to check raise at a decent frequency. Don't remember the frequency that I took in game specifically, but I think it's a medium frequency, around 50% of the time, I'll say. He continues, and on the turn 8, I think some of my bluffs improve here. Something like Jack 10, even though it's not a high frequency, I still have some Jack 10 in my range. And of course, I'm gonna still continue to bet hands like Ace Queen or Pocket Nines or Pocket Deuces. So I'll go for a 50%. I don't know if it's accurate as sizing, but I think it's fine going 50%. Pocket fours is one of my few bluffs that I still have in this line, other than something like king jack, king 10, hands like this. But you don't want to be too equity driven on this kind of boards, because in position is going to respond with some jams, and if you have too much equity, they're going to destroy you by jamming all the time. So this hand, I think it's fine to have sometimes in your range, and once you take it on flop, I think it's basically a pure strategy on the turn. Villain continues by calling, and on the river king, I think now basically every bluff that I have in my range except these kind of hands improved. So I went for the all-in sizing, and I think this is just a pure strategy on the river. I don't have many bluffs, and I want to target some specific hands like pocket jacks, pocket tens, queen 10, hands like this. And yeah, the guy ended up calling, snap calling me with pocket queens. What are your thoughts on this one? Do you think it's cool?
I think the hand has been perfectly played, and I also like the sizing scheme that you chose, especially the smaller raise on the flop. I want to make just a quick distinction for viewers. In textures like this, where a bunch of the 3-bet betting region on the flop doesn't interact well, and we expect very high betting frequency, a smaller raise already puts a lot of pressure on random hands such as ace king and ace jack. On the other hand, if the board has like a queen 10x, you know, smaller raise is a bit less effective, because it puts less pressure on the Broadway region, which pushes more equity on that texture. So you correctly identified the most efficient raising size on this board. Now, I don't want to say that 50% would be a mistake. It's just you can raise less often, and in general allow in position to realize a bit more equity. This hand, of course, makes a lot of sense to take as a bluff raise, semi-bluff raise. And on the turn, you have a pure continue with these low pairs. So people might think, but with this hand, we are not blocking any nutted hand, and we might already be drawing that. That's true, but on this texture, a few things happen. The first thing is that when the board gets disconnected, we incentivize in position to fast play some of their good hands, because a hand like pocket kings, even if it's not ideal, but still it's a lot of bad runouts where you don't want to play your hand as a bluff catcher, and at the same time you are incentivized to do some protection / value shove against a portion of the betting range, considering that cutoff here is gonna bet a lot of their check raising range. It's a pretty good card for them. And second, there's a lot of hands like pocket tens, pocket jacks, 10-9, jack 9, queen 10, etc., that we can pressure on a lot of runouts, and not blocking this region. Even if we don't block jack 10, actually having a jack or a 10 is blocking more of the hands that we're trying to fold rather than nutted hands. So this double factor allows us to have a profitable triple barrel on the king. because now it's very hard for villain again to defend enough, considering that they have some shoves. And even if you might argue that we might have some showdown value, we'll never get to see the showdown here. If they have something like ace 10 of diamonds, ace jack of diamonds, they should never allow us to see the river. So this is just a clean shove, because we have a lot of fold equity on this medium portion of the range. And again, we expect some of hands to fast play. Of course, not pocket queens with the queen of diamond. That is probably the most natural slow play that villain can have in this spot.
What do you think about hands like, for example, ace queen in buttons range? Do you think they ever fast play on the turn? I think ace queen is not a good fast play, but hands like pocket kings and pocket aces might do it. Even pocket aces I don't think is that good for the blocking effect of ace queen.
Yeah, basically when you jam here, you want to be called by some high equity draw or pair plus draw, or hope that ace queen also calls you. So kings, I think, makes the most natural fast play out of the over pairs. Pocket aces, maybe you can jam the one with the ace of hearts. This is interesting because you are unblocking ace queen suited there, and there's also not a ton of ace x of hearts in that line. So
Okay.
Can make sense to jam that one.
One thing that I would struggle with, it's now on the turn. If we go off pot, I think we're allowed to call not so much against the jam in this. For example, let's say that the button goes all in. We're not allowed to call any draws. I mean, we need to have such high equity draw. And how would you bet your, for example, your combo draw region on the turn? I think you still have to find some of these combo draws bet on the turn, but it's kind of hard if you face a jam.
Yeah, the problem is that when you face a jam, especially considering your combo draws here are mostly gonna be gut shot plus flush, or like king jack, king 10.
Yeah.
You might risk not having enough equity to call. So it's tricky, because again, also with this hand, you're blocking a bunch of calls. In general, I think favoring hearts over diamond is a bit better, because on the flop you can get bet called by ace king with the king of diamonds, for example. So whenever you have king jack, king 10 of hearts, at least you have a bit more fold equity. So maybe king jack, king 10 of diamonds specifically can go into some checking lines. Probably mostly check calling, I would say, because probably they don't work that well as bluff raise in the spot, blocking a bunch of these hands that are clear bet folds.
Ace king that are bet folding.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So this hand, how would you rate it?
Yeah, definitely approved.
Nice. Okay, let's go to the next one. I think the next one is not gonna be that approved. By the way, guys, if you need a tracker to track your hand histories, I'm using End2Note right now. And the guys from End2Note sent me the software to try it out, and it's an absolute bomb. And I advise you to check it out. And if you want, we have a discount code for the viewers, and it's OliJT10. You can use it at the checkout to have 10% off of your first purchase. Now back to the video. Okay, playing 5-10 again against a 6-max player, not a heads-up player. And I think this guy is a bit passive. We go for the 3-bet low frequency. I think it's around 10%. And the guy continues. And the board is ace 8-6. High frequency bet for us. Not range, I'll say, but something like 85-90%. You can simplify to range. And this time we do find the bet of a quarter pot. Opponent continues. Turn deuce. Spicy run out in terms of equity shifts. The deuce favors the button, and the diamonds favors the button. And here I'm basically, don't want to say range checking, but close to, since the run out is specifically bad in this kind of situation, heads up. So I go for the check, and in position bets I think 67, and we have a decision. Even though it's a close decision, I thought it was a decent call on the turn, blocking some of his 2 pairs and sets. I know it's a low EV if ever a call, but I thought it was fine, and it might be over bluffing because it's kind of easy to exaggerate here. Hence, like all the broadways with the diamond, and not even just that, but imagine you have a hand like king 4, king 5, of hearts or any float, any decent float of the flop, it's very tempting to take any non-showdown hand and just put it in the bet line. So I thought it was a fine call. And on the river 4, I went for the check call against the jam. Remember, I said this guy is a passive player, so it's kind of tricky because even if it's passive, I know that he might overbluff in this line. Like as I mentioned, if you have too many non-showdown hand on the turn, you're probably not gonna check back a lot on the river, since the river is very clean and improves some of your bluffs too. So I think it's one of these situations where if you have a bluff, you probably will bluff it. I don't want to say 100% of the time, but most of the times. And I went for the crazy call. Unfortunately, this time the guy shows up with a flush, so I look like an idiot. What do you think about this one?
Well, okay, I think this hand is a blunder, but I think the most critical street is not the river, but the turn. Okay. On the flop, I think against players who play 6 max, we can just simplify to range bet. It's just very good for us and not easy for them to play back. So I would just range bet against profile like this. And on the turn, the problem is that even if you expect them to overbluff, the problem with this hand is that you are drawing dead against most of their value, and you don't have clean runouts to improve your hands. Even bluffs like Queen 10 with the diamond have a ton of equity against your hand. So overall, you don't have the right price to defend. On the other hand, if you have 7-6 with either the 7 or the 6 of diamonds, you can take the line that you chose, and that might be a reasonable play. Also, I think that this is more about of Italian pool dynamic, where you have a lot of these bum hunters that play 1k just to try to bum hunt. And this player might tend to just try to realize more equity on the turn. So maybe they already start under bluffing on the turn and trying to realize more equity and take more passive approach, let's say. So I think I lean more towards overfolding against this type of players in these lines than towards bluff catching them.
Do you think that the run out might be overbluffed, the deuce on the turn? Like, I mean, I know that if he overbluffs 7-6, it might not be the perfect call, but what if he overbluffs? Don't we need to just continue basically every decent showdown hand?
Yeah, but I think that's more a pattern of more aggressive type players rather than these more passive ones. Because actually, I mean, also the fact that if they bet turn, they follow up or river is not very clear, because here you have a lot of auto folds on the turn. So it also might be that they stop, then they think you have a lot of these pocket pairs with a diamond, pair on board with a diamond, ace-x type hands. And again, it might look that they have a lot of bluffs and they also give them up on the river. So there's also this thing, and it's hard to understand exactly their strategy. So that's why if you have a feeling that they might be overbluffing, it's better just to use hands which are natural defenses rather than expanding so much and including also hands that are pure folds on the turn.
So final rating for this one?
This one is the first blunder of the session.
I thought with my thinking process I would have made the score better, but no. Okay, first blunder. And number 4, we're playing 6 max against 2 regulars. And we're actually in a reg war, so a lot of action going on. We open 3 big blinds. We're a little bit deeper than 100 big blinds. And here I was playing a raise or fold strategy. And the big blind was a strong regular, continues. Go to a flop, 5-3 deuce. I think this is one of the worst board for us as a small blind. I went for the range check. No, you might have some low frequency bet on this board. I just prefer to simplify to range check. Facing a half pot bet, you can go, I think, just pure calling this hand. I think overall raises are low frequency, since the big blind already has an advantage on straights and 2 pairs and sets, so you don't want to put a lot of money into the pot, especially out of position. And I went for the check call. Turn is the deuce, and I check. In position goes for the B 75%. Now I think that this hand is just a check call, and I would have some thoughts about check raising, but I don't think I want to play a lot of check raises overall. I don't know, maybe you can help me with that. If I do have to construct a check raising range, I don't know how to do this on this kind of runouts. So I was just playing calls and I went for the check call. River is a 10. Again, it's a spot where you might find some donk betting going on in the solver, but I definitely don't know how to do this properly. So I range check on the river, and in position goes for the pot size bet. I think that my opponent might underbluff this line, and that's why probably, even though this hand might actually have some calls in theory, even though it's a perfectly fine hand to bluff in my opinion, I went for the pure check jam, and to put in a tough spot hands like straights or flushes. I don't think you can bet a lot of trips in this line, but my opponent actually surprises me and calls me down with King Deuce of Hearts. That's a very spicy hand. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, so a lot to talk about this one. On the flop, I agree with range checking. This board is terrible for your range. The deeper you get, the worse it gets. And about check raising, I think this hand plays just as a pure call, because what you want to avoid, again, in this spot, you don't want to face a 3-bet, which mostly will be straights or top set probably type of line. And also with this combo, you're blocking hands that might call you for a few streets, like ace-5, king-5 type of hands. So you have a bad removal on the continuing range, and at the same time you unblock the 3-betting range, which is basically crushing you. So check call, I think, is the best option. On the turn, you mentioned you wanted to ask about whether to construct a check raising range, and in general I think check raising range on turns that change the equity of the texture should be developed, but here it's a bit complicated because the deuce is not improving a ton of your hands. Realistically, you don't have a ton of deuce X, and this only improves pocket 5s and pocket 3s as both now they are ahead of straights, but we still expect the straight to always bet the river. So basically on non-completing flush runouts, we expect to win stack from straights mostly. So I think we just want to play here as calls.
What about on the river?
Pot, I mean, it can be an ambitious size for trips, but I can still see an opponent trying to team value bet like that. So here, basically, we have a pure shove with the nut flushes plus. And I think against some opponents, we can even make a case of putting some king eye flushes into the shoving range, even 150 big blinds deep, especially if we expect them not to be able to find a fold with the ace-4 type hands. I think his call is definitely way out of line because it's not blocking any of your, only one combo of pocket deuces, but again, it's not blocking your value. Your natural bluffs would be something like ace diamonds 5x, ace diamond 3x. Those are the most intuitive hands, of course. But
yeah,
also the 5
ace diamond 3x, right? It's not an open blind versus blind. I think it's ace 4 plus.
Yeah, I mean, if you ever open that would be a good one. So mostly it would be ace diamond 5x. And in terms of the suited combos, I think this hand is probably indifferent between jamming and calling. Probably slightly better to have the club combo because you're also blocking 5 deuce suited and 3 deuce suited. I mean, it's not a big portion of the range, but when we have a super narrow combo selection, it's better to use super premium bluffs, especially if we're up against opponents that are super sticky and find this sort of call. So I think I would lean more towards calling with your hand in practice, but if you think your opponent is more linear, not bluffing, I understand your thought process. But again, if they also end up calling these hands, of course, this just ends up firing back at you. So I would say this hand is close and probably considering I don't want to be result oriented, but considering the tendencies of the players, probably might be slightly negative against this profile, but it can be a very strong play against other profiles. So that's why I would say this hand is close.
Still not a blunder. I think it's fine.
Yeah, not a blunder, definitely.
Okay, last one, and then we'll continue on your channel. Okay, here we open pocket queens heads up. We were playing 6 max, but the table was closing, and we open pocket queens, defense, board is jack 7-4. I was playing a high frequency small size on this kind of boards, and he goes for the check raise. I think this is 70% check raise, and with pocket queens you can find some 3-bets. I think it's a low frequency overall, so I was just rolling maybe some 10% raises. We decide to call, and turn is the 5 of hearts, and he quickly finds the check. I think here most 6-max players are going to have a hard time defending their checking range, since you're gonna have to find some low frequency checks with straights and sets too. Of course, hands like Jack 4 or I don't know, Jack 5, specifically the Jack 5 of clubs might be intuitive checks, but for me it's underprotected, so I already start with my mind to go into the value betting range and go for the big sizing. He continues by calling, and now I will definitely exclude any straights in his range. And when the river it's a 10 of clubs and he checks, I think I have a value bet, even though it's I think not a value bet in theory. I think in practice it works particularly well, because I thought in game if I go b70 or b55, something like that, I went b55, it's very hard for my opponent to find the check raise jam with hands like Jack 5 or I don't know, Jack 10 offsuit, if he ever has this. And it doesn't improve a lot of straights on this run out, like 9-8. So basically, if he has a better hand than mine, he will just press call. But I think it's very easy in his choose to overbluff against the half pot 60% size. Because what if you have ace 4 offsuit, ace 7 offsuit with the ace of clubs? What if you have a 6-5 offsuit with the 6 of clubs? Or hands like this, basically 6-5, yeah, 8-7 maybe with the 8 of clubs. Of course, then you will be over bluffing by an enormous amount. So I went for this spicy line, and opponent jams, and we snap call because I already made my decision, and he has ace-7 offsuit with the ace of clubs. So of course I look like a genius, but I want to hear your thoughts about this one.
So yeah, I think on the turn, I like your sizing choice, and I think from his part though, hands like ace 4 should immediately fold on the turn, because even if they might be ahead of some bluffs, again we have the same spot where bluffs have insane amount of equity against your hand, and you just don't have a lot of runouts where you can do much. So in this case we have reverse situation for him. Also we expect him to fast play most of the good hands. And another thing is that, considering there's a double flush draw, a hand like 9-8, which might consider also check calling with the double belly gutshot on some lines, right now cannot really check call because there are 2 flush draws. So it's 9-8 is incentivized to bet the turn if they bet the flop. On a rainbow version or on single flush draw version, they can find some check calls with 9-8. And this is relevant because 9-8 makes a straight on the river, which is one of the hands that can actually play like Villain did. So another important thing is that the flush completing card is a 10, and this removes a bunch of potential value that Villain might bluff raise, like 10-5 of clubs potentially. This leaves him with something like Queen 5 of clubs, which you are blocking, King 5 of clubs that might play this line. But again, there might be some ace of clubs, 7x, this 6-5 or 8-7 with the club that take this line. So here I think the value bet is a bit close, because still it's true that Jack 4, for example, can check raise, but Jack 4 are just 2 combos. One combo that concerns me the most is Jack 10, which improves, but again, this hand will never shove. It will just press call once you bet. So I think a lot of DV of the bet comes from expecting Villain to over bluff and doing some punts. So if I bet this hand, is always because I'm planning, of course, to bet call, and because I'm leveraging on the fact that I expect Villain to be more dense on these combos that we mentioned, like this ace-7, 5-6, 8-7 type of combos. And again, I don't expect them to have really a ton of flushes in this line, and definitely they cannot shove Jack 4. Definitely don't expect them to shove Jack 10 right now. So yeah, I think the end in general is well played, especially if we expect Villain to be over bluffing with this portion of the range.
Yeah, I think you have to be very careful here to not over bluff. And I think if you're a 6-max player, and I know this guy plays a lot of tables, so you might not take into account that you have a ton of potential bluffs, and you just might be over bluffing all the time. So.
Yeah, and this is a common pattern. Like they have a hand which they see, okay, here I'm not beating much, I have a good blocker, I'll bluff and try to get him out of team value, but at the same time, they don't realize how little they represent there.
Yeah. Okay, so this one, final rating?
This one is approved.
Nice. Okay, guys, for the next part of the video, we have 5 more hands on Francesco's channel, Hidden Edge Poker. You'll find the link in the description. Francesco, thank you for being here, and I'll see you in your video.
Thank you for having me, and yeah, come check the second part of the video on my channel.
Goodbye, guys.